Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this breakout session of the second MAP Next Gen CEO Conference 2021. I am Donna, President of UBE Media, your moderator for this afternoon's breakout session, The Good Lifestyle. This is the second session for this track, so please settle down comfortably and we will now begin our program. Some reminders before we proceed. As participants for this breakout session, you are automatically muted and your camera video is also switched off. Audience in the Echo Hub platform will remain muted. However, you are encouraged to submit your questions through the chat box. Due to time limitations, we may not be able to have all your questions answered live. Lastly, for our audience, you will only be able to see the speaker and moderator and will not be able to view the other participants. And in line with the MAP policy, we will dispense with a lengthy introduction of our speaker. Our speaker for this next breakout session is expected to share with us her views on how next-gen CEOs in her industry sector should lead their businesses to be innovatively profitable, socially responsible, and environmentally respectful. So may I now call on our speaker for this breakout session, Ms. RISSA Mananquil Trillo.
Hi, Donna.
See you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
Donna.
Hi, Risa. So for this session, we're gonna make it more relaxed, and it's just really super kwentuhan for us and discussions. We'd like to thank MAP for this reunion of sorts for us, and years after. We'd like to find out more about your journey on how you've become a very successful entrepreneur. But let's get some baseline started as the theme of our conference is the good next gen CEO. So I'm going to fire away with the questions and go dive in the deep end. So first, how do you define good?
I like that that's the first question because this conference is about the good CEO, next gen CEO. Well, for me, when I define good, goodness is always choosing to do what's right, even if it ends up being the more difficult option, or doing what's right, even when no one's watching. For me, a good person looks out for the people around them and doesn't wait for or ask for credit in order to help others out. Good people also leave a room, a community, an industry, or even the people they cross paths with in a much better space than how they found it. That's what goodness is for me.
I like that when you leave a room or something, if you're that person, right, you kind of feel better having met that person. Yeah, to have that when you like exit or enter, you already feel good. Okay, and yeah, I'm glad we're surrounded with good people today. So we're having baseline definitions right now. So one is good, and since we're also talking about this is the good lifestyle, and you're the beauty expert, so some baseline also on how you define beauty.
So, how do I define beauty? Well, for me, someone is beautiful, or beautiful people are the ones that do good, are brilliant, or are talented. Beautiful people are those with integrity, have their values in place, and are kind. But for me, if I look at the people I know, the most beautiful people are the ones that have a sense of confidence that doesn't stem from how they look, but more from how they, more from what they're capable of. Intelligence and passion, for me, those will always be beautiful. And when anyone does something they're passionate about, for me, they become more connected to who they are and ultimately more beautiful.
Okay, so we've defined now good and beauty, and right now I'm gonna pause for a while because I have some technical difficulties. And there you go. Okay, So we're going from good to beautiful, and this is going to be a conversation that we're going to have for almost close to an hour. So in this session, we're going now deeper into we've defined good and we've defined beauty, and they're not always like parallel to each other, it's particularly the beauty industry, right? So my next question would be, why did you choose the beauty industry for your business?
Well, before becoming an entrepreneur, I really spent more than a decade modeling and writing a beauty column for national broadsheet, The Philippine Star. Well, Donna, we met even before I started my own business, right? So I was modeling, hosting, and I was also so much into writing. And it was in all those years, and I realized that even if I got to try so many beauty products, I really wasn't able to experience a makeup brand that could take care of my skin without leaving it looking and feeling worse after having it on my face an entire day. Before, when a woman would put on makeup, it was a vicious cycle. A woman would wear makeup, go home, have her skin break out, and try to cover it again because of the blemishes and the breakouts with makeup. And it was actually during the peak of my modeling career where my skin was at its worst. Um, when I looked at all the brands back then available, I was surprised that no one was really providing a solution to this problem. And I was sure that I wasn't the only one looking at this unmet need. With my beauty column, I received so many questions from readers bringing up the same concern. How their skin would break out for makeup, or how there wasn't a match for makeup that would complement the Filipina skin. So for me, there wasn't a single brand back then that cared for the skin, suited our Philippines tropical weather, and had a Pinay skin tone in mind. So instead of waiting for someone to come up with a solution, I took the chance in filling this gap in the local cosmetics industry.
And so how did you go about doing that? That was like David versus Goliath. Because there's so many like the beauty industry, the global industry is probably like a billion or $1 trillion business. How did you get to do that?
Well, back then, that was 8 years ago, the beauty landscape was 90% dominated by imported brands. So, yes, it did feel like a David and Goliath scenario. Um, but you know what? I've been in the fashion and beauty industry so long, and I was certain, as an entrepreneur, you have this gut feel that this is going to be a game changer. But during that time, 8 years ago, it was also the time that social media exploded. And, unlike a lot of these Goliath big brands with deeper pockets and bigger budgets, a startup brand never had that kind of amount. They could afford billboards, full page print ads, the biggest endorsers. So, what really equipped any startup back then was the power of social media. And social media was a great equalizer. Whether you're a small brand or a big brand, everyone had the same kind of that potential to reach as much consumers, not just in the Philippines, but to be discovered by other beauty enthusiasts across the world. So social media was such an important force in building a beauty brand back then, and today it still continues to drive so many brands right now. And I think it just multiplied with this pandemic since everyone was on their gadgets.
Okay, so that's business tip number one from Risa. So if you have your products there and you don't have your social media page or Instagram page, now's the time to do that. Okay, so more
Definitely.
on business. Yes, more in business. And Risa also has some slides prepared, so we can show that also, right? So again, good communicating good beauty, and we're gonna go back again to that communicating beauty as, let's say, vanity and as self-care. How does that how can they be how can they say sometimes na pag nagpapaganda ka, arte-arte lang yan, but it's actually, a way to be able to represent yourself properly and a way to um, do self-care.
So I guess it's about balancing the beauty industry as not just fluff or something flighty, but as an essential like self-care. If beauty tools are used by someone to make themselves feel better about themselves or to bring out confidence and feeling more empowered, from something that's hiding within them, and to help the rest them rest and recharge, I see that as self care. And in fact, the role of beauty amidst this pandemic pivoted more than ever. People felt the importance of the world of beauty as self care at this time. Um, if but for me, if the beauty and the tools that you have around you cause you to become self obsessed or dismissive of others, then that crosses over to vanity. So it really depends on how you view the beauty products around you. Is it really more to take care of yourself or to be to enter the world of being obsessed and just focusing on the physical aspect? Um, I guess having great skin or a great makeup look shouldn't be the replacement for developing traits like kindness and empathy. Makeup ultimately may be a powerful tool to bring out a person's inner beauty, but there isn't enough makeup in the world that can cover up any bad character.
So with that, are there any personal like rituals that you do every day and habits that you've continuously done throughout the years? From a beauty ritual, that's one, because I bet the people watching this session are like really wondering, like from a practical aspect, what do you actually like do for your skin day in and day out? So that's, let's say, external stuff like makeup, and then as you were saying earlier, like empathy, kindness, and all of those, like that goes outwardly, right? That reflects also in your
Yeah.
overall like aura. So what do you do, Risa?
When it comes to personal rituals or habits, I've, if anything, I've always been a stickler for professionalism. And I'd like to think that's something you witnessed when we got to work together before for a TV show. And I continue to be this way. When I graduated from college, from Ateneo, the first, even if I had offers to work in companies, I chose to professionally model. It was a business decision for me also back then because a lot I knew I would earn more from modeling than a 9 to 5 job, and it would also give me enough free time to really explore my passions back then as a young girl. And when I got into modeling, my height was actually just the minimum for me to enter the local industry, and I didn't have special features like fair skin or silky long hair. So I knew I had to work harder by being the best model any client could work with. I didn't want to be late for any photo shoot or fashion show. If I had to do my own makeup and hair during an emergency, I made sure that I would be able to do that. Professionalism was about being able to deliver no matter the circumstance, and I made it my X factor when I was modeling back then. I also study everything in detail, whether that's trends, new brands, or best practices here and abroad. And through consistent observation and persistent studying, you'll always find something to better in yourself or in what you do. And it will keep you from resting on your laurels.
And absolutely, I will have to agree with that because having worked with Risa, we used to work on this show on a cable channel where you're supposed to look good and feel good. And aside from getting her as our host, we it was a very efficient production because we didn't need a makeup artist because Risa would do her own makeup, and showing up, we'd have very like from a production standpoint, we saved a lot of time because, okay, Risa, we're gonna shoot already, so we'll take like one take or two take, and that it's done. So always such a trooper and always all prepared. So yes. So tip number 2, guys, be professional. So aside from the social media, being professional also, and then your other, well, I'm still curious going back to your like beauty tips because those are hardcore skills, like whether you're in the beauty industry or any other industry that you're supposed to do. But what do you put in your like face like every night? Do you have a regimen? How you keep that all together?
Wow. I do, I guess because I have this quality in me that I want to be professional. So even when it comes to my routine, there's something I really, abide to and really stick to. And for me, my must is really sunscreen. If I was stuck in an island, that's what I would have with me. And I know this isn't exactly a makeup item, but it's a very important beauty product that one should wear every single day, even if you're indoors and especially when you're outdoors. Exposure to UV rays is, as we all know, the leading cause of skin aging, and sunscreen is something we have at our disposal to fight this aging against sun exposure. Um, a good sunscreen is the closest thing I think we have to an anti-aging vaccine. So with just sunscreen alone, you're going to prevent years of aging down the line.
Okay. Yes, Risa. So for everybody listening here, please take down the notes. If you haven't started using sunscreen, please do, whether indoors or outdoors. Because yes, there are UV rays coming in. So take it from Risa, who's our beauty expert here. Okay, still on the topic of beauty, right? I was just reading this meme today, and like it said something like, wait, I'm gonna share it because it's kind of like really funny. Like, people would say that beautiful would say like beauty isn't important, and then rich people would say money isn't important. Basta, it's something like that. So obviously, right? If you're beautiful, you're gonna say like, ay, hindi na yan kailangan, right? But there are scientific studies that have claimed already that beautiful people actually have an edge over, I mean, depending on how you define beauty, right? But according to science, it's actually the symmetry of how things or beings are created. That's how they defined it, and that's how humans biologically like respond to simulation. So, I mean, it's not even humans, fruits, or that's just how biologically we are created. So, that being said, if you're not in that kind of beautiful, right? Um, how do you compensate that? Or how do you tell people who don't feel beautiful? Is it, have you encountered talks or given talks for that?
Well, when, how do I phrase this? Well, words are important when we compliment someone or say that someone is beautiful, but sometimes the people who don't feel beautiful aren't in need of convincing from other people that they're beautiful. What's essential is that they need to see it for themselves. So for me, you can say more with how you act towards them. I always look at people in the eye when I converse with them. I ask questions about what they're passionate about, and I take notice of things that they've done well. Me, when I talk to someone, that's how I see how beautiful they are. When their eyes light up, or they're you can feel their excitement and passion for the things they love in life. And I know they seem like little things, but when you talk to people, that they help others feel like they've been seen, especially when you take notice of the things that they've done well. Of course, it also doesn't hurt to say something nice about how a person is, carefully presented themselves, whether it's about the lipstick they're wearing or something new they did with their hair. So maybe that's how I would approach people who maybe don't feel beautiful.
So very, very practical tips here, right? From wearing sunscreen to looking people in the eye and making people feel seen. So that again, in terms of how you can relate to other people. Okay, we have other questions here. All right, still talking about makeup. If you're stuck on an island, Risa, what will you be carrying with you?
It would still be the sunscreen that I mentioned a while ago. And more importantly, because if I were in an island, it's really sunscreen that I would need in a tropical place where it's just all sunlight.
Okay, so sunscreen, guys. If you haven't taken note of that, well, you're gonna be regretting it in like year 2040 with the amount of climate change that we're getting. Okay, this is quite a serious take on this, especially in ASEAN cultures. What's your take on the local beauty industries highlighting lighter skin? Is this good?
Um, we live in a country and a culture where highlighting lighter skin sends a message that this is the highest standard of beauty that there is, and that all people should aspire to have that. That's the kind of culture we have right now. And it's actually a dangerous message to send to a country whose people are naturally whose people have naturally brown skin or are morena like us. So anywhere you go, from media, whether you see it in the products in the drugstore or in billboards along highways to the ads in YouTube or on Instagram, it will really feed you the idea that having fair skin is the secret to feeling loved and successful. In a subtle but impactful way, morenas are being sent signals that they're not enough. And being a morena myself, I think those who don't fit the typical standard of beauty have to work doubly hard to discover their self-worth. I always tell women that the most important person to please is yourself. You are always in control of your self-worth and happiness. It's not in anyone's hands but yours.
Oh, so well said, Risa. And for people who heard that, yeah, that's a very very clear message for the younger people. Thanks for saying that. Okay, we're gonna go from your beauty rituals. Now we're gonna go more for beauty and businesses, and of course, balancing your life. You're aside from being an entrepreneur, right? You're a mom and a wife. So, in the past years, did you have to do some sacrifices in order to achieve your professional goals?
Well, I wrote in my book, Read My Lips, What It Takes to Build a World-Class Homegrown Brand. One of the things I wrote there is that one of the things, actually, the hardest things about being an entrepreneur is that you're on call 24/7. A lot of people think that when you have your own business, hawak mo na yung time mo, and it's, you can really, they think they're more free than being in a corporate job. But when you become an entrepreneur, it's really being on call 24/7. So while being my own boss has made it easier for me to attend family affairs or gatherings and my kids' school needs, the reality is, even if you are not physically working, it's always a 24-hour mental whirlwind. You're thinking about the business nonstop. And I've had mall trips with my family when I would use the time to check on stores and sales while we were also at the mall making pasyal as a family. I've had so many instances where I had to work until dawn just so I could get undisturbed work time while my husband and children slept. For me, as soon as they as soon as I finish all my duties as a mom and the household is already entirely asleep, that's when I can have more time for working because I feel I've done my duties as a mom. I guess when it comes to having your own business, entrepreneurs can never truly shut their minds off. It's really a journey that can eat away your time and energy, physically and mentally. And there are really no shortcuts around this, especially at the start.
And yes, so at the start, Risa, what were the major challenges that you had to hurdle?
Well, aside from entering beauty landscape that was 90% dominated by imported brands, like I mentioned earlier, I think the most challenging activity so far I've hurdled being having my own business was walking away from the business I helped create. I think that undoubtedly was the hardest thing I've had to do. But I've always grounded myself on values of integrity and on the belief of doing what is right, even when it's not easy. So when it comes to values that are really, really important to me and values that I hold dear, it never makes sense for me to compromise because every time you compromise, it means you're also compromising your respect for yourself. So in the end, I really don't have any regrets because I know that my decision reflects choosing the values that are important to me.
Okay, so which leads us to, in terms of managing a business, what's your personal management style? How did you manage um, or continue to manage businesses?
Having my own business, I learned that people are easier to manage when they're happy and fulfilled with their roles. And in my experience, matching the right person with the right role often has to do more with culture fit and not just skill. Sometimes the automatic thing to do is look at their resume, but culture fit is so important more than skill. Whenever, right from the interview process, I try to catch applicants off guard by asking unusual questions. Of course, it's nice to know how they contributed to a certain project or how involved they were from something they did in their past work. But I really make it a point to ask questions that reveal to me who they are outside the office. Just like finding the right business partner, it's always important to share the same values and work ethic with the employees you hire. And because I'm also the kind of person who tends to do everything herself or tends to attempt a task many times until it's perfect, I've also realized that efficiency happens when you know how to delegate. Sometimes, when you own when especially at the start, when you own your own business, you feel like you have to do everything. People tend to micromanage, but I've learned to farm out tasks to people who are more skilled than I am in my growth areas. And I would rather be a leader who works smart and not just someone who works hard alongside my team. When I focus on what I do best, I also give others room to do what they're best at as well.
So when did you get to these? Since of course you started and then when you had to scale up already, right? I mean, di na pwede yan. I mean, obviously you'd have to supervise everything. When was that point that you had to farm out other stuff?
Well, of course, any startup starts with less employees. And the dilemma of business owners is usually they're afraid to hire more people because it translates to an expense. But looking back, I mean, if there's any, you need room as the one who created the business to think how to grow it. And if you keep doing the tasks that can be delegated, then there's no room for growth. And like I mentioned, a lot of entrepreneurs always think they don't want to hire or grow the team. But you know what? When we grew the team and expanded, that's when the business exponentially grew. So it left more room for us, um, decision makers, to strategize how to create and innovate new products, how to grow the brand and make it bigger. So I guess every entrepreneur will always feel like, oh, it's my baby. I need to do every little thing. But believe me, when you learn to delegate tasks and make that little jump to hire more people and expand the team, you'll see that the business can also grow exponentially.
Okay, so with that, I guess you had times that you felt like overwhelmed, or were there times that you felt that starting up?
Come again, sorry.
Yes, at the start, Risa, when you were like doing everything, how did you realize that, you know what, yes, I need help, and that kind of recognition actually helped you? I mean, you were mentioning earlier that you had to like rise and already scale and delegate, but now um, I want to find out, when did you actually like do that? Like, was that a particular point?
Um, there's no exact science to it because the beauty industry will be different from the food industry, and the needs and requirements of every business will be different. As a business owner, you'll know when you need to expand the team and grow the team. Uh, when you're overwhelmed and juggling everything, and there's no room for growth anymore because your mind as a business owner is consumed by everyday tasks, which you could be delegating to. So I can't give a template answer for all the kinds of businesses. It really differs for the different industries.
Okay, and then well, we're still in the pandemic, so I want to ask, like, they say, well, yeah, the Global Women Leadership Report said that, women happen to be the better crisis managers around. So, can you share us also what you did during the pandemic in terms of managing your people?
Well, the first thing I made sure was everyone was safe and felt secure. Um, I really reached out, especially to those who were in isolated areas and could not have access to, just the daily essentials, whether it's they're getting access to their grocery or that time, right? It was still so hard at the start of the lockdown to get alcohol, face masks, and face shields and whatnot. And that's the first thing I did. And a lot of the borders for every city they were closed. You know, there were checkpoints. It was very, very strict at the start. And it was frustrating for a lot of the employees because there was even, the special pass. And then since there was no public transportation, even if they walked to the grocery or the market to buy food, by the time they finished, they're already at the cutoff of the 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 curfew. So it was a bit frustrating for so many. Everyone was still grasping on how to manage their own households with the start of the lockdown. So what I did was I wanted to make sure everyone was okay, and I so that they don't have to worry about the safety and the feeding their families every day. I sent um, grocery packages for our employees that were in the more difficult areas that were hard to reach and had limited movement and all. So that's one way. I think it's nature that it's second nature that you really think of the well-being and safety of the employees. Um, at the end of the day, your employees, and I always talk about that, and I mentioned it in my book that your employees are one of your biggest assets, and you really have to take care of them. Their growth is the growth of your business, and it's the growth of, and it means the happiness also of the consumers.
I'm so glad to hear that groceries for family members so that just, unless they're safe and protected, it's really hard to get a workforce going, especially during the pandemic. But at the same time, you also need, like the entrepreneurs. Obviously, sometimes it's like this big secret from entrepreneurs because obviously, a lot of the stories are the success stories. But yes, as you were saying earlier, being an entrepreneur, obviously they will see RISSA MANANQUIL TRILLO receiving the entrepreneurship award, right? And that's what you'll see in the papers, etc. But the the serious part of it is a lot of hard work went into or goes into that. So can you share us more about balancing your home life and family life and having a lot of support system at home?
Um, I think that's the hard thing about being an entrepreneur, especially a female entrepreneur today. There's this expectation that you have to be great both at work and at home. And that's something that is expected mostly just from the females. It's a different kind of expectation. So balance is really a tall order for any individual, especially someone who juggles multiple roles like most moms do. You will never feel like you're equally giving the best of yourself to each one of your many responsibilities and priorities. Some things that have helped me are shifting my mindset from achieving balance to having integration, understanding that how I spend my time will always change depending on my needs, my family's needs, and my work for that particular moment. Knowing also what my non negotiables are and what I can be flexible on. All of these help me to be more present instead of trying to be perfect. And I think it helps me cultivate more gratitude instead of worrying with guilt. Um, one of the, one of the crucial things a woman, especially moms today, need is a good support system. And sometimes you don't need to look far. Sometimes it's your own home that is the best support system. And for me, that support system came in the form of my husband, Paulo. He supported me unconditionally. Like he always made sure I had the time to do the things I would do. And he was the kind of husband that would share um the duties at home equally. That's the unfair burden a lot of women face today because and I think it multiplied during the pandemic that home, unpaid work at home is still work. Caring for the family, attending to the children, and the work of women has doubled and caused a lot of mental and emotional stress. And for guys, that's not expected from them by society. So I'm very, very fortunate that I have a husband that supports me unconditionally and equally shares in the work we have to do at home. So it's very equal. No one, I never felt that my husband never made me feel that his work is more important than mine and that mine had to take a back seat. And I'm very fortunate to have that kind of support system. And I remember that I think it's Sheryl Sandberg, the Facebook COO, once said in a commencement speech that the most important decision a woman will be making is who she's going to marry, because that's going to dictate the kind of career she's going to have. Something like that. She said that. And I realized, I also read recently an article that for most women, we talk about breaking the glass ceiling, and this article that I read, I forget, but the article said that for us women, our glass ceiling is actually sleeping beside us in bed. So it's usually our partner who limits us or allows us to succeed. So that's one thing I realized. That's why when I saw all that, I felt really grateful to have a kind of husband. So choosing the right partner is so important, especially for a woman's career and growth.
So yes, so that's another tip, everybody, choosing your partner, not only a business, but your long-term partner. So thanks, Teresa, for sharing that. We have a phone-in question here right now, and having talked about your family support system, and wow, you talked a lot about, well, other people define that the mom guilt for women entrepreneurs. So balancing home and family life, how do you define success?
How do I define success? For any business person, success to them is defined not normally by numbers, right? But for me, I don't, that's not my measure of success. Success can also be defined for other people by awards or prestige. But for me, success is when I achieve something that I know is still aligned to my values. I know it sounds, how do I say it? It's not measurable, but the feeling of fulfillment for any person, whether you have your own business or you're working in a company, when you know you're doing something you love and it's very aligned to what you believe in, what you're passionate about, and what your values, the values that are important to you, that's an measurable feeling or an immeasurable kind of success. No numbers can be attached to that, and that's the kind that gives you peace of mind, fulfillment, and even growth. So I guess my reminder would be success isn't always about numbers. There are many ways to define success. And you, if you're going to start your own business or if you're going to enter a job, I think it has to be very, very clear to you what your measures of success are before you get into anything.
Okay, thank you, Risa. And now we're almost wrapping up. Wow, this is after this we'll have to have another session or yeah, an extra session for this, but we only have about 7 minutes for this, so I'll have one or two questions and some parting words for you. So you're talking when we were planning about this right now, you're studying more about sustainability, and that's right smack into our theme right now for the Good Next Gen CEO. So if you can share some of what you're up to right now in terms of what you're doing and developing yourself as well.
Well, I recently finished a business sustainability management course. It's something I've always wanted to learn more about. The focus of high impact entrepreneurs is really to solve the big problems of the world. And, you know, I realized having my own children made me even more aware that we really have a responsibility of leaving the world a little better for those who will succeed us. As they say, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We actually borrow it from our children. So for me, that investment in formal education was my personal commitment to do business for good, a business that doesn't just look at profit, but the people and planet as well. And yeah, so that's what excites me right now. And sustainability is going to be the language of business.
Okay, so Risa, these are big words right now, right? Sustainability. So if you can share also very, very practical tips on how you manage to maintain a sustainable lifestyle that people here, there's a lot of people listening. So can you share those as well?
Um, well, I think when we think about sustainability, we always think about in terms of ingredients, like it doesn't contain this or the ingredients are like this. And we also think about the way something is produced when we think about sustainability. But what people forget about sustainability is that it also means lifestyle and beauty habits that you can commit long term. Sustainability, actually, when you think about it, it comes from the word sustainable. I mean, if you're going to get into something, is it sustainable? Is it something you can do long term? And doing good isn't just a one time thing, it's something that should be consistent and long term. Um, when we, for sustainability, it's a lot of us are not just, maybe a lot of people listening are into business, but at the end of the day, we're all consumers. I think we all have to have that discipline when shopping or consuming. Like, for example, personally, I make it a point not to buy something until, let's say, my body lotion or facial wash is about to run out. Sometimes we have this tendency to hoard or overbuy, and by the time you want to use your products already, they're expired or they're not usable anymore. They've turned rancid or something, and they're beyond the shelf life. So I think that's one thing we have to think about when it comes to sustainability. We try to hold accountable so many businesses, but as consumers, we also have to play our role in the little things we do every day. And as they say, whenever we try, there's so many issues on sustainability and the planet is facing right now: the overconsumption, overproduction, and as a consumer, I think one simple way that we can help is, they say that the most sustainable product that you can start using is the one you already have at home. We all get excited. Oh, I'm going to buy this sustainable bag so that every time I shop. But sometimes we don't need to look far. We have a lot of things at home that we can already use. And when we start sustainable habits at home, I think it's so important that, like I mentioned, we have to think what is sustainable, what you can actually commit to in the long term. For example, oh, I'm going to switch all my washing materials for the dishes into this product, but maybe the price isn't something that fits your budget. So it's not that switch to that sustainable practice isn't going to be long term. It's just going to be one time. So I guess every person as a consumer has to find that balance that at the end of the day, if you want to be sustainable, you have to find something that you can commit to long term. And that's what really being sustainable is about, making those changes long term.
So, Risa, we learned a lot from you, from sustainability to actually practical tips. So, a sustainable beauty habit that you can do for today
Commit to,
and the rest
yeah.
of your life, yeah, is to wear sunscreen. Same time, other tips such as using social media and using beauty and good for a good lifestyle. Um, I'm told to wrap up now, so I want to thank you, Risa, for sharing your story and your journey towards being a good next gen CEO. And we look forward to having more conversations with you. Thank you for your time. And yes, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you at the next sessions.
Thank you.